Hey guys, welcome to part two of my Plant Chores series. It's a pretty short one, but I'm hoping it'll be filled with information that's useful to you guys. Cheers to another troubleshooting session as we rummage through all the problems that I have recently been facing with my plants. I hope this information is useful to you guys. So if you are new here, thank you so much for joining us. If you are returning, thank you so much for coming back. And let's not waste any more time. I want to start with showing you guys my microns. I forgot to show you all it in the part one of the series when I chopped and propped it in that video. So this is what it looked like before. It was quite bald on the top and the vines were really sparse. It was really due for a full facelift and makeover. So I'm hoping to have some plugs going to fill this out in about a month or so. Next, I'm going to move along onto my Homolamina wallisii. This one was completely toppled over in the garden. It was completely uprooted, but that I think was a good thing because I think you would have seen some really terrible looking roots that were actually black, and I'm going to have to clean that up. But I will say that I will be potting it back up in lacquer alone, as you see it was originally in, because that is the only way I could get this plant to grow. I got my first one in April 2022. And well, that didn't last more than 6 months, and then I replaced it in December 2022 as well. And this is what it looks like today. But since I've put it in lacquer and I water it as I do any other plant that's growing in soil, it has been giving me new growth. So I'm just going to pot it right back up just as you see there, top it with moss, and that's it for this one. Okay, so I have a ton of alocasia props to get through. Some of them need repotting, some of them need a facelift, some of them need to be set, just like those combs you saw there. So, you know what? I find there are limited alocasia videos, like dedicated alocasia videos, whether it be species specific or just in general. Comment below if you want me to do an alocasia video. Bear in mind, these are all propsets, so these are tiny. So I will feature my mother plants, which are a lot bigger and multiple plants are in one pot. They all have multiple leaves, so I could do a purely dedicated alocasia care video if you're all interested. So just comment below or and even just let me know what your concerns are about alocasia so I could include it in that video. But anyway, all of them currently grow in semi-hydro. Very few are still in soil. What I mean is my substrate of choice for growing alocasia is either leca or pond specifically. This is because I am an overwaterer and I just cannot get the watering right when an alocasia is potted in soil. So I have transitioned or converted my alocasias to growing in semi-hydro. However, when I said some are in soil, for example, this alocasia maharani here that you're seeing is growing in soil. That's because it was a recent purchase, like within the last year or so, and it has not underperformed in that soil mix, so I did not switch the substrate. Okay, so this is my alocasia cuprea. What I like to do is once there is exposed stem above the growing substrate of choice, I tend to moss the top of that stem to encourage further root growth along the nodes there. This ensures multiple leaves on my alocasia, and it has been a successful rooting method for me for as long as I can remember. So it's a consistent practice that I do in my garden. Next are a bunch of Alocasia black velvet that simply just need watering. Next up is my Alocasia frydek. This one is infested with spider mites and all sorts of different bugs that you could see there. So I don't usually cut the leaf off unless it starts yellowing or so. Even if it's that infested, I usually just use my safe as end all and that kills on contact. And from a Plant Chores video a while back, I had created this little quarantine bay here. So I am just gonna treat all of these that have either had spider mites or recovering from a spider mite infestation as well using the end all. I'm going to move on to these that need potting up. That's my Alocasia Dragon's Breath. This is a Alocasia Green Shield. Firstly, I fill a clear vessel halfway with lacquer. and I just remove one of my little alocasia props from its growing container. These containers I get from Amazon. I will link everything below. All additional information will also be in the description. So anything you see me using, you could always check for it there. If it's not there, actually, you should be able to find it in my Amazon storefront. So after filling the container halfway, I rest the little prop on top of it and just top it off with lacquer, as you see here. Now that one is just ready to be watered. Onto my alocasia green shield, it got rained on, so the vessel, well, the plastic cup that I recycled from Starbucks got overfilled with water. So I'm just going to empty that, and it is ready for a repot or uppot, I should say. So I'm going to take it out of this plastic cup. You'll be able to see how dense the root network is. I do fertilize hydroponically using TPS1. And what I'm going to do is include this other plantlet that I grew from comb into the new vessel. So I'll have two plants in a pot. This is a really nice trick to have a super bushy alocasia so that you have individual plants pushing multiple leaves to give you a super full look. So I'm going to transition into a glass vessel. This is an older Nescafe coffee bottle that I'm just reusing or repurposing, and I fill the lacquer probably one third up so that as the alocasia grows, I can continue to root the exposed stem or just add lacquer as it grows upward to continue rooting from the exposed stem. This method ensures that I don't disturb the roots frequently to have to repot. So as the plant grows upward, I just add more substrate to the vessel. I was out of moss there, so I just add some pond to ensure humidity in the upper part of that glass vessel. So I'm now going to pot up, well, I'm going to set some combs. This is the base of the comb and this is the top. So I'm just going to set it in my humidity chamber to sprout. I always use lacquer, and that little chamber is always halfway filled with water. So the humidity basically does the work to sprout them. They aren't submerged in water. That I find causes rot, so I only fill it halfway. This is my Cryptosperma johnstonii. It has gotten pretty huge. I found that there was some exposed roots on the top. Because it's in a clear pot, I saw that the root network wasn't dense enough that warranted a complete repot. So I'm just going to backfill to cover the exposed roots. And this is just some moistened premium aroid mix from Utopia unamended that I'm just going to add to the top, and that'll be the end of that one. This is a philodendron pink princess that has gone missing. This Dischidia is looking pretty sad, as well as this Hoya. I'm going to check the roots in this Hoya because I know they are pretty hardy plants. Maybe I could bring that one back by possibly rerouting it in water. So I'm just checking the roots to ascertain viability, and while the roots look like it does have a chance, so I'll probably reroot that one in water. I'm not sure if I'm just going to toss this to Shidia. I washed all the soil off of the Hoya roots. I still don't know which Hoya it is, and they look alright, so I think I'm going to try and reestablish it in pond. This substrate always works for me, especially as I can keep a closer eye on the roots and the water line. So I'm just reusing some old pond. It has been out in the sun baking, so I'm not too worried in terms of having to sanitize it. I usually don't have any problems with reusing my pond, so I'm hoping that this one would grow back. In terms of this Dischidia, it looks like it was seriously over-rained on, I would say, as it was left outside, and I'm just going to put it in a brighter spot. Here's a random one. This is actually a small kaimit tree. I couldn't find it in me to just throw it out. It was growing in my gloriosum pot, I believe. So I decided to pot it up and try and grow it out. I have successfully grown avocado trees from seed, so I'm hoping this is no different. But I said, you know what, let me try and establish this at my new home just as a fond memory of the massive kaima tree that currently shades my entire garden and did so for probably 3 years. So just as a memory, I decided to pot this one up and try and grow it out and plant it at my new home, just as a memory of this old kaima tree that currently shades my plants. I'm going to add one of my stake solutions. This is a configurable stake option that I frequently use for plants that are tall and spindly like this kaima tree. Basically, the height is configurable as well as the width. This is the smallest configuration, and I'm just going to clamp the kaima tree in so that it will not topple over. As you can see there, the holes at the top to add extra rods. So as it grows, if the stem remains this thin and it continues to need support, I could just add another level of that stake. So that's a really interesting product that you could check out. That will be linked below. This is my variegated banana plant, or musa. It's the first one. It's my only musa in my collection. I only acquired it a couple months ago, and it's starting to show me that it's not the happiest by not holding many leaves and browning. So I'm gonna repot it in a pot slightly bigger. I'm not sure really how much bigger I should go, but the information that was shared with me and what I've researched is to just ensure that it is receiving sufficient moisture and is potted in a well aerated mix that allows water to flow through freely. So I'm amending my premium aroid mix with some cacti and succulent mix here, and that's what I'm going to pot it in. Let's take a look at the roots. It does look like it has a healthy root system, which is great news. This is it all done. Hopefully it's happier now and holds on to more leaves. I'll keep you guys posted on Instagram about its progress. And I decided to pack this along with a couple other plants to take home today just to keep a closer eye on it. This next aroid is quite overgrown and screaming for an uppot. It is a crawler and it's my philodendron sodoroi. It is well rooted. The roots look great, so I'm just going to pot it in a pot that is one size up and a clear one so I could continue to monitor the roots as it grows. So I'm going to backfill this as well as give it some fresh potting mix just like this, and I placed a small bamboo skewer for additional support, just as it's now repotted, just to give it some more stability, and I'm just adding it to the pile to be watered at the end. Next, I'm going to tackle my Schismatoglottis wallichii or wallichii, however you pronounce it. Usually on aroids that have a bare stem but doesn't need uppotting, I add a moss collar to the area that is exposed on the stem to initiate root growth. This I find is a super helpful method when it comes to repotting or just ensuring general health of the plant, because the more roots it has, the more efficient it will take up nutrients that it needs. As you can see here, the roots look pretty great, so I'm just going to backfill, not covering the new shoots, and place it right back in its original location. Here's a plant I struggle with in terms of it maintaining its variegation. It's my Florida Beauty. I have two plants here, but believe it or not, I have made like about 25 cuttings of reverted leaves before, trying to reestablish the variegation from each cutting. So the first one is just going to get a pole. The second one, I'm going to do the same chop and prop to try and reestablish the variegation. So my rule of thumb is once I see 3 reverted leaves, I chop it back. So I'm going to chop it for you here to see exactly how I do it. Usually I go 1 centimeter on either side of a node, but in this case I'm going to take a top cut right here, which is like 1 centimeter below the active node, and this one is going to be a single node cutting 1 centimeter on either side of the node. So I'm going to prop those in water and hopefully the variegation will come back, and hopefully this one will reshoot to give me a variegated leaf instead of a reverted one. So let's all cross our fingers here. So the pole has been added to this one, and I'm just going to place it back in its original location that seems to be giving me some better variegation. This is an east-facing spot, but it does get direct light up until noon. I'm placing all my Florida Beauty cuttings in that location. Now, these are examples of some reverted cuttings that I took to try and bring back the variegation. This one is growing in semi-hydro. I gave this one a lot of light to the point where it is scorched. It looks quite chlorotic. This is it growing in pond and lacquer. And this one has not given me any reverted leaves. It's on to like its sixth one, so I'm gonna cut all of these up. I wasn't joking when I said I had over 25 cuttings or plants. These are just some left over that are finally rooted and ready to be potted up, but I had some full plants. I gave multiples away to friends for them to give it a go and hopefully bring back some variegation. But what I'm doing here is I'm going through the ones that I water propped that are ready to be potted up. And I'm going to pot those up to, again, continue to try and see if I can bring the variegation back. You just never know with plants, so I tend to not give up on them quite easily. So these are going to be potted up, as you can see here, and the remainder I am going to continue to root it in water. So I changed the water out. I just gave it fresh water. That's plain water. Only when I see new roots, I tend to add Super Thrive to encourage root growth. This is Super Thrive, by the way. It is available locally at Casa Farms. That's where I get mine. If you do decide to go to Casa Farms, be sure to mention me, Candy. You will be able to get 5% off in-store, whether it's at their North Branch or South Branch, and it will apply to your entire order. So I'll put all the information in the description below. Lastly, with respect to the Florida Beauty, I just wanted to show you guys a successful propagation where the variegation came back not from the primary node but from a secondary node. It did push out fully variegated leaves, but the newest leaf does look quite promising with much more balanced variegation, as you can see here. So this is why I never give up on reverted cuttings, because you just never know what the plant is going to do. It's continuing to progress great, and I'll update you guys on Instagram or in my next Plant Chores video with respect to how this one is doing. But as you can see, it pushed out the variation from a secondary node. Okay, I'm going to need quite a large basin to tackle my Hoyas. They all look terrible. They have been severely neglected with me not being at this location as often as I used to be. So I think I'm going to do a massive chop and prop to try and root different sections or multiple sections to try and put them all together to have a full pot in each going. Again, hopefully they will prop. They look quite dehydrated, so I'm not sure if that would even be successful. This one is my Hoya, I can't remember the name, but they all look quite dehydrated. This is my Meredith. So I'm gonna just take a look at the roots in all and basically assess what can be done. Hoyas are very, very new to me. I really struggle with them as I am an overwaterer, and these really do thrive on neglect. Well, not as much neglect that I gave them here in this situation currently, but I really have a lot to learn when it comes to Hoyas. So what I'm trying to do here is start over with all of these. So what I did was I cleaned them up. I want to take a look at the roots carefully. I cut them into bits and pieces, and I am hoping to root them in a humidity chamber or a prop box and get some new plants going. But right now I just kind of want to focus on rooting these sections, and I feel I'm going to use this empty plastic container, clean it out, and set it up to be a prop box. So I washed this one out thoroughly, and I'm gonna use Le Chooser Pond to prop the Hoyas in. So this is just my pond box, and while I was rummaging through, I ended up finding an extra prop box. So I think I'm gonna prop the Hoyas in this proper prop box instead of my container and save it for storage. So I'm just gonna rinse my pond. In a past video, someone asked me, why do I rinse my lacquer? All my semi-hydro substrates I rinse because they have a lot of dust that settles to the bottom of my vessels, which I can see because usually I use clear vessels and that basically turns to mud or mush, and I don't want my roots sitting in something like that, which seems to be not aerated at all. What I simply do is allow water to run thoroughly through the substrate, ensuring that there is no dry substrate anywhere. So I allow the water to thoroughly drench all that is in the sieve. By the way, I think I got this from FCMC. It's a collapsible sieve. I will confirm the description. But I allow the water to run through until it is completely clear. That way I know all the sediment is out of the substrate, and then I just add the moistened substrate now to my prop box. Because this is a setup for Hoyas, I think just having the substrate moist should be sufficient enough for Hoyas, which are kind of water sensitive, I would say. And once I've added it, I will add this lid to the top. So I ended up doubling back for my clear plastic container to turn that into a prop box for this specific Hoya, as I had so many cuttings. I can't remember the name of it, but once I do, I'll put the name up on the screen. I'm just going to seal it, as you see there, and well, these are where I put the other Hoya props that I use my prop boxes for. This is east facing. It does receive a good amount of bright indirect light, especially up until lunchtime. After that, it's pretty shady conditions, but they're both set up there. And I just took this container to another shelving unit that I have that is more west facing and receive the same amount of bright light, but just on the lower shelf. Right, so all my Hoyas are taken care of, and I'm going to move to this sad looking rickrack cactus or fishbone cactus. Is it? It has taken a beating not only from the iguana crawling all over it, but it has succumbed to some root rot and general rotting of the foliage from some intense rainfall in this area. Complete sections have broken off as the roots are no longer viable, so I'm just rummaging through looking to see if there are any broken bits, of which there are many. So I have to basically recreate a new pot, and I've removed all the substrate to start over with this one. So I'm just going to cut off all the rotted parts and all the rotted roots and repot it into this concrete planter. And this is the final look here. Hopefully it's a lot happier, and I'm going to move it from its existing location, putting in a new spot to keep it a little safer. This is my Sansevieria Samurai. I bought this about 4 or 5 years ago and never repotted it. The roots look fine, but it is infested with root millies. Now, Sansevieria are such resilient plants, but I won't let that go untreated. I love using systemic granules for treating and controlling root millies or millies in general. Basically, you just apply it directly to the plant, and it absorbs whatever is the pesticide into its foliage and repels millies. So it doesn't only treat root millies, it actually acts as, as a repellent for millies in general. So this is the full stash ready to be watered. It is quite a big bunch. I'm going to mix some great white water and water them in. I'm going to use the vessel from my spray can. It's a 1 gallon vessel to mix my great white water because it's so many plants that I have to water. I swear by using great white, especially for newly repotted plants, because it promises to prevent trauma, of which I've witnessed for myself, and in general, it allows for the the efficient uptake of nutrients, sorry, from a really, really small amount that I mix into a solution. So I've seen the results of this time and time again. I will not stop using it. It really is a great product, so I'm going to water with it here. For ease of pouring, I just add some to my watering can, and I just go around to each one, pouring, ensuring that I get an even distribution throughout the substrate. It doesn't affect the foliage, so if it gets on the foliage, that's okay, but I basically pour until water comes out the bottom. Okay, so that's it for part two of this short plant chores series. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a thing or two. I would love to hear back from you guys in the comments about what you would do differently from me, or if you agreed with anything that I said, or even with video tips in case you have some video suggestions for me. But I am truly grateful for you guys watching my videos. I would be so thrilled if you guys would subscribe to the channel so it lets me know that the content that I am pushing out is relevant or useful in some way. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much again.